I think now it is got proper. Okay. So first topic is stakeholders and their laws, drone rules 2021. So before I begin about this topic, I would like to understand from you guys, are you aware about the drone rules 2021? Have you heard, have you got any idea about it? What is these rules talks about at any point in time? You tried to figure it out, what are these and understand, try to make it anything out of it. Have you attempted any kind of or aware of these things?
Yeah, there are certain restrictions like you cannot fly around the airport and
Correct,
in
correct.
height you can't go up, but there's a weight limit also of certain weight for a specific drone.
Correct, correct, correct. So I mean, there are guidelines into it, but if you try to read this document, drone rules 2021 is 43-page document, which is half is in Hindi and half is in English. So roughly around 20-22 pages you can consider. Uh, but when you read that initially, you will not able to make out lot of things out of it. There will be lot of ambiguity, and it becomes very difficult to understand. Prior to that, there was a document which is called as a car. Okay, car for drones was released in 2018 2019 during that point in time. Okay, so but that was far more difficult, far more confusing. There were a lot of ambiguity in that document itself, and people, when it was released to the normal people to follow and read and all the things, people were finding it very very difficult to understand, and they wrote back to DGCA that this document what is there are a lot of confusion, lot of clarity is not there. So like there were a lot of open items were there were 25 forms to be filled. There was fees ranging from almost like 1,000 rupees to 25,000 rupees. Penalty was also very huge with respect to that. So initially DGCA, whatever the document was made with respect to the drones, was very very confusing, very very complex, I would say. A lot of people, even people who were part of the industries, they were not able to understand. And that is where actually DGCA felt that if we want drone industry to grow, or if we want this industry, or where our aim is to make India as a global drone hub by 2030. Okay, so just a minute, I'm getting a call, just give me 2 minutes. Okay, sorry, I have to take that because that was an international call. Okay, so it's related to our flying requirements. Okay, so I was talking about the drone rules 2021. You might have gone through it, and then you probably know something about it. But post this module, you will know that document very well. Okay, you will know how to read, what to interpret from each rule. So there are 55 rules in this document. Okay, there are 55 rules in this document. There are 12 segments. Okay, so these 55 rules are divided into 12 segments. So you will know what is each segment covers up, and there are what are important segment with respect to being as a drone pilot. Okay, so from operations perspective or flying of drone, there are some aspects of the segments which are very important for you. Some segments are not really relevant from a flying or being as a drone pilot. Okay, so there are some segments which you can ignore, but there are some segments which are important with respect to the flying, where you need to pay more attention and understand them very well. There are some segments which are common or general for everybody. Okay, so there are these. So you have to understand from segment to segment, and then understand how these 55 rules are applicable to. So I will be also giving you this document. You can download it from online also. You can just Google and type drone rules 2021. That document will be available, but still I will send you on the email. I will send you the proper link also from where you can download this document from DGCA website, as well as I will give you a 2-page summary. Okay, it's just a simple summary. Like for example, if I say you what is rule number 21, so you should know what is rule number 21. When I say what is rule number 46, okay, you should know what is rule number 46. So that is, you don't really need to mug them up, but it should be, you should have a fair amount of idea. Nobody is going to ask you what is rule number 26. Nobody is going to ask you what is rule number 30. Okay, if you are going to higher up your studies, or you are going to become an instructor or a master instructor, then only you need to know from that perspective. But from a drone pilot, at least you should know what are the important rules. Okay, there are certain rules which are important from flying perspective. There are some rules which are not important from flying, but they may be rules, okay, with respect to the drones, okay, which may not be applicable from an operation perspective, but they are applicable only from administrative perspective or regulation perspective and all the things. So that is what we are going to learn. Before we go into the details about drone industry, we will start with the initial aviation part. Okay, how the aviation world started, or what was the initial, like I shared you yesterday the image about the first flight, about the Wright brothers who flown the aeroplane over there, and then that's how the kick started. It's not that the Wright brother actually started the aviation part of thing, but that was the first successful powered flight, I would say. Okay, heavier than air. Okay, so that aircraft was heavier than air, and it was successfully flown for 12 seconds. Okay, so the first flight was only for 12 seconds, but subsequently in that day they almost flown for more than I would say 120 seconds. Okay, so almost for 1-2 minutes they were in successful flights, they were flying that same aircraft. And that is where actually people felt, yes, the dream what humans used to carry, that's though we were not evolved as a people or a species to fly, but we still can fly. And that is where we dreamt, and then we overcome that drawback or that limitations what we had, and we were successfully able to make those flights. And then over the 100 years of aviation, we can see that we build the aeroplanes and devices in such a way that we can really fly in air, due to with some kind of a technology enhancement or some kind of a gadget or all the things. Okay, so let's see how actually the aviation started. So initially, if you see, in 1903, the aeroplanes were started flying, and then subsequently in the First World War also it started, and post World War One, the military, US military, UK military, or France, all those allied or people who actually won the World War One, they thought that in future we might need to look from an aspect of flying aircrafts, and which will be play a very important role in future wars and all the things. Okay, so people were using aircraft from a military perspective. Even parallelly, same time, initially the aircraft was used for delivering the air mails, okay, or the mails, or the letters. Okay, the whatever the postal services were initially introduced the aeroplane for delivering the parcel as well as the mails and all the things. So after that, then people thought that why not people can be used to fly the aeroplanes, and that's how next, after the first flight, almost 40 years, people started, but it was only limited to the people who can afford, the people who can afford to purchase the aircraft, people who can afford the travel by the aircraft and all those. So it was more left to the people who can afford, means the rich people or people who had been from the upper community and all the things. So almost 40 years aeroplanes were used, and people were flying aeroplanes from one state to another state, one city to another city, or from one country to another country, but there was no guidelines at that point in time. And that's where the people across the globe felt that we need to have some kind of uniformity or agreement between the nations, okay, with respect to the technical, economic, legal, operational matters, with respect to civil aviation. So there has to be some agreement to be signed by all the countries, those who are actually flying aeroplanes from one country to another country or one location to another location. So there was a treaty was established for the international organization. There has to be a international organization where the members from all these states or these nations would be the members, and then they will contribute to run this international organization, and it will govern all the aspects with respect to the technical, economics, legal, operational matters with respect to the civil aviation. And that treaty was signed on 7th December 1944 at Chicago Convention. Okay, and that's how post that treaty was signed, International Civil Aviation Organization, or what we called as ICAO. Currently, it is headquartered at Montreal, Canada, which had initially 36 contracting states. 36 contracting states means 36 nations which signed this treaty, and they followed and they started this organization, that is International Civil Aviation Organization, or we call it in the short form as ICAO. Okay, so currently your civil aviation or commercial aviation is being governed or monitored or given what is that uniformity or agreement between the nations with respect to the technicals, economic, legal, or operational matters is being governed by ICAO. Okay. Similarly, from the aviation perspective, in 2015, ICAO felt that the drone industry is now catching up and growing, and then needs some kind of a guidelines or a framework and all these things. So in 2015, ICAO formed a committee with respect to RPAS. Okay, RPAS means remotely piloted aircraft system. Okay, so for RPAS, they formed a committee, okay, with respect to three focus areas. One is international instrument flying operations, global interoperability with regards to certificate of airworthiness, operator certificate, and remote pilot license. And the third is national authority focus, or the framework for domestic operations. So there are three aspects when it comes to drone flying. One is the instrument flying, because drone is the device where you do not have onboard anybody over there. Okay, you are flying that device remotely, so it is heavily dependent on the instrument, it's heavily dependent upon the data. So you need to know where the drone is flying, what height it is flying, what latitude, longitude, what temperature, what wind speed, all that aspect with related to aviation, what is required, those information, that's what we call as instrument flying. Okay, and then is the global interoperability, whether when you are building a aircraft, it needs to be airworthiness. That means it should be following some safety security features. Okay, it should have something which is related to airworthiness. That means it should not fly, and it should not harm or damage any kind of property and all that thing. So kind of airworthiness it should have. Then the person who is flying or providing this kind of services of flying the drone, there should be something called operator certificate. Similarly, the people who are flying those drones, there would be some person who would be definitely flying, or some person who would be monitoring or controlling. So that's the remote pilot or the pilot who is flying this drone. There should be some kind of a guidelines for to become a remote pilot. So that licensing part, what we are, or the course what we are currently doing is around from this aspect only. So remote pilot license. And third is with respect to the respective nations, there should be some domestic operation related, some guidelines in there. So currently the drone rules 2021 is outcome of this framework which was given by the ICAO. So in 2015, ICAO gave the framework for domestic operations. Okay, it gives the framework. It is building the framework for international instrument flying. It is currently working on the certificate of airworthiness. So doesn't means that the drone which is certified in India is valid drone in US or valid drone in Europe, or similarly the drones which are being developed in US or in Europe or any other country or any other OEM outside our country, that drone will be certified. So it has to follow the certification or the airworthiness certification from the respective domestic country. Okay, with respect to the country, like India has its own set of certificate of airworthiness. So that common certificate of airworthiness. So when we have an aircraft from Boeing or Airbus, they have been certified by a body. So once they are being certified, it doesn't require that India has to recertify them. Okay, it is globally accepted that this aircraft is airworthy to fly. Okay, with respect to safety, security, and all. So that is what is being provided over here. So currently, this certificate of airworthiness is not globally accepted. Currently, it is only limited to with respect to the country or the nation. Similarly, your remote pilot license also. Today, you are going to become a remote pilot license holder. So your license is only valid within India. If you go to Europe, if you go to US, you cannot fly drone because they have their own guidelines and their own certification. But in future, it will be a global acceptable. Okay, so but that guidelines has still not been worked out or still not been released by ICAO. So every country has their own licensing, operator certificate, certificate of airworthiness, or framework for domestic operations. Currently, it is only with respect to the region or with respect to the nation. But in future, it will be global. Okay, it will be accepted globally. So, like for example, driving license is globally accepted. If it doesn't require, you may have to give some small test or small some fee you have to pay when you go to other countries and all the thing or getting certification. But similarly things, or even when you become a aircraft pilot, you don't need to become again a pilot. If you become a pilot from whether from India or whether you become a pilot from Canada, USA, Australia, or European countries, wherever you would have, even from UAE, if you become a pilot, you don't require to become a certified again for a pilot, or you don't need to apply. Your pilot license is valid globally. So same thing will be also applicable in near future when you have the guidelines coming from ICAO from this perspective. So currently, whatever the guidelines with respect to the type certification or airworthiness, operator certificate or remote pilot license or domestic operations are only limited with respect to the countries. So similarly, US will have its own guidelines. European countries has their own guidelines. UK has its own guidelines. UAE might be having their own guidelines. Similarly, India has also its own guidelines, which we called as Drone Rules 2021. Okay. So if you see with respect to ARPA's committee, it was formed in 2015. So Aircraft Navigation Commission in 2015, a panel was formed for ARPA's piloted aircraft system. They took the members from their current team with respect to like airworthiness, air traffic management, detect and avoid system, human performance, piloting license, ARPA's operations, safety management, communication and C tooling. So they have taken one or two people or maybe three people from every segment, whether it is airworthiness, human performance, ARPA's operations, safety management, or maybe from communication. So all these different segments, they have taken one, two, or maximum three people, and they formed a one big panel, which is called as Remote Piloted Aircraft Systems Panel. Was formed in 2015, which actually released the framework. Okay, so they focused on working on these three line items: international instrument flying, global interoperability, and national authority focus for domestic operations. So they released initially the framework for domestic operation. This framework was taken by the respective countries. Like US took the framework and they developed their own framework for their domestic operations. ESA, okay, what we call as for European countries, for ESA took those guidelines and they released their own framework for ARPA's flying. Similarly, India also took this framework and they released initially a document called as CAR. Okay, CAR, Civil Aviation Requirement. We'll see the subsequent abbreviations in subsequent slides. Okay, so this CAR was released in 2018-2019, which I told you, which had lot of confusion, lot of ambiguity was there, clarity was not there. It has lot of stringent rules which made very difficult people to follow or people to operate drones, or even doing the aero modeling. Even aero modeling comes under the drone rules 2021 now. Okay, so earlier there was a separate guidelines for aero modeling, even that was not clarity, but then they consolidated everything which is supposed to be flying remotely or remotely operated or remotely piloted, what we call, under the drone rules 2021. Okay, so far any question, any query you have, I can take up. Yes, Darsh.
Sir, I just wanted to know this: does RC planes and helicopters also come under drone rules, or it's separate?
So helicopter is flown human. Okay, so there is a pilot in command inside. So that doesn't come under these drone rules 2021. It has its own separate
No,
guidelines.
no, the radio control helicopter I'm talking about.
Radio control helicopter will come under the drone rules 2021. So it will be
Okay.
coming under the aero modeling section, or the model RPAS, what we call. So we'll see those subsequent examples where you will have a clarity which model or which aircraft which comes under unmanned or what not comes under unmanned. Okay. So let's move forward. Due course over the time between these slides, all your queries related to this, how to segregate between manned, unmanned, or whether you need to follow drone rules 2021 or any other rule is applicable. So this slide also will give you clarity about the rules and regulations. So if you see with India perspective, though we were under the British rule in 1934, we got the independence in 1947. So before even the independence, British has passed the first law in India to regulate the civil aviation industry and make better provision for the control of manufacturing, possessing, use, operation, sale, import, export of aircraft. So because that point in time, as I told you earlier, the princely states, the richest people, the people who were business people who were can afford to buy the aircraft or buy the aeroplanes from outside the country, or maybe the services, even the operation perspective. Since you know that the first flight from Karachi to Mumbai in 1928 it started. So next 3-4 years there were a lot of aeroplanes were flying within India, outside India, from outside India to India. All that things were happening. So British thought that we need to have some kind of a law. So that's why in 1934 Aircraft Act 1934 was first law passed in India to regulate the civil aviation industry. Okay, so basically it was for controlling the manufacturing, though we were not really manufacturing aircraft at that point in time, but there were some manufacturing happening, or the parts related to aircraft was which were made locally also at that point in time. Even today also we make lot of parts for the aircraft, but we are not making full fledged, or we are not having a full fledged industry where we make our own aeroplanes. Okay, the military is trying to build their own aeroplanes, but then you have recently must have heard that we don't build our engines. Okay, similarly even from the drone industry also, we are trying to become our own manufacturing base for the drones also, but there are still a lot of challenges with respect to the semiconductors, with respect to the parts and all the things. So we really are not manufacturing aircraft, or we are not really manufacturing full-fledged drones also till date. Okay, but that is what we need to overcome, and government is also equally supporting now to come ahead for the OEMs, for the startups also, the new startups. So if you see starting with 5 to 10 to 20 startups now in drone industry, we have almost like 250 to 300 plus startups who are working towards the goal of establishing India as a global drone hub by 2030. Okay, so coming back to our topic, Aircraft Act 1934, which was the first law passed in India to regulate the civil aviation industry. Subsequently, in 1937 there was a rule, okay, with respect to Aircraft Act 1934. So 1934 there was only a act, okay, was passed, but then there has to be operationally what and when and how it will be applicable. So some rules needs to be defined. So these rules came into the existence in 1937. So aircraft rules 1937. So even the drones documents, drone rules, what we called earlier before actual drone rules getting released in 2021, the car which was released came under the Aircraft Act 1934 and Aircraft Rules 1937. So these two document guidelines, the car was released for drones, okay. But then, as I showed the challenges about it over the period of time, later on, we had a separate document which we called as Drone Rules 2021. So full form of a car is civil aviation requirement. So any amendment with respect to this act and rules, okay, will be released as car, okay, which we called as car or civil aviation requirement. So the car is issued by Director General of Civil Aviation, or what we called as DGCA in a short form. Okay, so car for RPAS was issued under the provision of Rule 15A and Rule 133A of Aircraft Rules 1937. So if you see the Aircraft Rules 1937, there will be a provision of rule number 15A and Rule 133A. So under these two rule provisioning, there was a car which was released in 2018-2019 for RPAS. Okay, but as I told you, it has lot of challenges, lot of ambiguity with respect to the understanding and thing. Subsequently, the new rule was passed in 2021. So we'll see in subsequent slide. If prior to that, let's understand couple of more documents as we understand the car. Similarly, there is a document which is called as AIP. Okay, it's a Aeronautical Information Publication. Okay, this is the important document released with respect to the country or the state. Okay, contracting states, what we called, okay, or a nation. Okay, so this is a prime document containing permanent information of our long-term volatility essentials of for flight operations. It is published by each ICAO state for its territory. That means it will be published by each country. Okay, so Government of India, the Central Civil Aviation Ministry or DGCA, they will release this AIP document which will talk about the flight operation, related to flight operation. I mean, you would coming up with the new airport, you would be started the new services on new segment, whatever this long term information is related to flight operations, like setting up a new infrastructure, setting up a new radar station, new airport, new aerodrome, or whatever is related to aviation from a long term perspective, will be released in this document, is called as Aeronautical Information Publication. So on DGCA website, on respective government's website related to civil aviation, you will find the AIP document. Similarly, there is a second document which is called NOTAM. Okay, it is Notice to Airmen. Okay, so this is announcement or transmitted by means of telecommunication containing information concerning the establishment, condition or change in aeronautical facilities, services, procedures, hazards, the timely knowledge of which is essential for personnel concerned with the flight operation. So see, this is a, I would say it is a short term information. For example, I am upgrading a radar services at Mumbai airport, or maybe I am shutting down a terminal 1 at Delhi airport. So this short term information or short term availability of services, or maybe not availability of services, could be any kind of thing, or any information which is important with respect to the flight operations. These are been released in form of a NOTAM, whereas long term permanent information is released in form of Aeronautical Information Publications. Okay, so these both documents or both information is currently available online also. Initially it was in a form of some kind of a document or in a soft copy format also available, but now it is available on internet also, time being, as if required. So maybe in form of a telecommunication or in form of a hard copy or a form of a soft copy also available. Okay, so CAR is one document which is again talking about the rules. Then you have AIP, that is Aeronautical Information Publication, and NOTAM. Okay, NOTAM is a short term, AIP is a permanent information with respect to the facility or long term validity it is. Okay, whereas short term is for NOTAM, which is maybe usually 1 month or maybe 2 months or 3 months, not more than that. Okay, these are the applicable of this document from civil aviation perspective. Okay, as of now we do not have anything with respect to the drone industry, but from your understanding these are the importance which we can refer with respect to the civil aviation. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay, so similarly, as I said, in 2018 2019 the car was released with respect to the ARPAs, but then it had lot of challenges. Complexity was there, ambiguity was there, lot of stringent part was there. It was very difficult to follow or apply those rules and regulations with us. For example, I gave you, there were 25 forms, so it was very difficult to understand which form to follow, which form to fill, for what purpose. And then the fees was very high. Fees was almost from 1,000 rupees to 25,000 rupees. Similarly, the penalty part also was very huge, like it was from lakh rupees to 10 lakhs amount of penalty was introduced in that document. Okay, so right from 25 forms to paying 25,000 rupees of fees, which was reduced to 5 forms, and only 1,000 rupees of fees is applicable, and even the penalty was reduced from 10 lakh rupees to 1 lakh rupees only. So maximum penalty with respect to drone rules was only introduced as 1 lakh rupees. We have only 5 forms now required for with respect to the operational licensing part and all the things. We have only fees to be paid only is max of 1,000 rupees, not more than that. Okay, with respect to drone rules. So they have simplified the rules, simplified so that people can adopt the drones. They can think about utilizing drones for day-to-day activity, day-to-day operations, and day-to-day businesses, or entrepreneurial segment, or research development. So government also felt that we need to make simpler. There are subsequent amendments also has been done. It is not that they have just released rules in 2021, but subsequently some amendments was minor changes were done in the rules in 2022 2023 also. Okay, so we are only 3 years old with respect to the drone industry or drone rules 2021 in India as of now. Okay, so in August we will be completing 4 years now. Okay, in August. So as we said that the car which was released, DGCA took that seriously, the suggestions and the suggestions, advice given by the people from the industry. So they thought that we, not only the DGCA who has to be part of this drafting these drone rules 2021, they brought in the people from the industry. Okay, they brought in people from aero modeling segment. They brought in people who were building the drone rules, or the drones, as well as utilizing drones or using drones for whatever, maybe from a training perspective, or maybe from operational perspective, or maybe from building up some new entrepreneurial business or something like that. So they invited those people. So there was a team almost of 25 to 30 people in 2019 2020. Even the people were represented from Bombay Flying. There were 2 people who were nominated from Bombay Flying Club and was part of this initial team, which actually made the draft rules 2021. Okay, so based on the suggestions and guidelines and discussions, so there were seminars, workshops were held, and the drone rules 2021 as a draft was released on 15th of July 2021. Okay, so 15th of July 2021, the draft rules were released and given to these people, the team of 25 to 30 people from the industry, to review it back and provide again the suggestion, so that the final rules can be published officially to people to follow. Okay, so that was the first time the initiative taken by DGCA, and subsequently after again 1 month, so from 15th July till 15th of August 2021, people were given time to come back with the suggestion on the draft rules. Okay, and subsequently changes were done. So there were some suggestions were also provided by Bombay Flying Club on the drone rules 2021, and those were incorporated into the system. And on 25th August 2021, drone rules 2021 was released for everybody to follow, and that's where the drone rules 2021 came into the existence. So it had segments for type certification, which needs to be done by QCI approved certification entities. Then you need to make sure how you can register your drone on the platform. That was given the guidelines in drone rules 21. Then drone pilot training, as you need people to fly the drone, you need to make people certified. Okay, you need to have a licensing part it. So there has to be organization which is authorized to impart the drone pilot training. So you need drone pilot trainings by DGCA approved drone training schools. Okay, so that guidelines was given. Then how to train the people, what training, what eligibility criteria, what document is required, what basic eligibility or requirement would be there to become a person as a drone pilot license. Like for example, age criteria was defined, documentation criteria was defined. All that aspects were there. Or even the drone training rules, drone training schools also given a guidelines how you are going to impart the training. This 5-day course which was designed by DGC and given to the drone training rules. So I can train you for minimum 5 days. I need to conduct a course minimum 5 days. More will be no objection, right? But less than that I cannot conduct. So I have to conduct 2 days theory, 3 days practical. All these guidelines was given by the DGCA. So we have to put up that curriculum in front of the DGCA, and it has to be get approved for this 5 days training course. Or maybe for a class like whether I am flying a drone of which segment I am flying. So all that needs to be defined into our guidelines, and then only when it is accepted and authorized by DGCA, then only we can conduct those kind of training. Like currently we are conducting course for small class of drones. We have already applied for micro and medium class also. Okay, so currently we are working with DGCA for getting our curriculum approved. Once it is approved or authorized, we can conduct medium class training also. We can conduct micro class training also. We have trying to build a course for building the drone itself in a micro class also. And you will build your own drone, will get it certified, and you can fly that drone for yourself. So that course also we have designed and we have put up for approval to the DGCA. So maybe down the line 2 months or 3 months we are expecting this authorization also coming to us, so that we can have multiple classes starting for drone training. Okay, we are planning to start a drone maintenance in micro segment also. Okay, so where you can build a drone, you can certify, you can repair those drones also, which will be covered. Similarly, as the drone is flying device or a mobility device, it needs to be insured, because a possibility a drone can cause some kind of a damage to a person or a property. Okay, similar to your car or a bike. Okay, so the car or bike can cause an accident or incident, and it can cause damage to the life or property also. So with that respect, insurance is mandatory for your bike or car. Similarly, for your drone also, insurance is mandatory. So that guidelines is been provided in drone rules 2021. Also guidelines for flying the drones. Okay, where you can fly, where you can't fly. So that guidelines is also been defined under the zones, okay, which we call as yellow zone, red zone, or green zone. So where we have to take permission or where we don't require to take permissions. Okay, so that entire definition of zones is also defined in drone rules 2021. So okay, so any question on drone rules 2021? Yes, Arkodeep.
Yeah, sir. Who is providing this insurance for the drones?
So there are insurance companies. There are different insurance companies who has authorized to give this insurance. Okay, so there could be a national insurance company. ICICI is providing. Then there are a couple of insurance companies who are providing this insurance. Okay, so initially there was no company was initially ready to provide, but after drone rules 2021, there is a guidelines which was being set up. Okay, so the insurance company also now knows what to follow to make an insurance policy and all the things.
And suppose the drone damages something like a property or some threat to someone, so the insurance will cover the drone or
Yes,
the.
yes. So we'll see that in subsequent slides. So how this drone rules actually help insurance company to frame the guidelines for building the policy document. Whether you are only covering your drone, whether you are covering drone as well as the third person's life, or maybe his property or whatever it is. So all that aspects will be covered in the subsequent slide. So I will explain you in detail in that. Right? Yes, Darsh, you have a question.
So how do we bifurcate which zone is what exactly in terms of
We'll come to that topic. Okay, so right now it is 11:30. Let's take a 10 minutes break. Okay, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the drone rules 21. So now actually our whatever these queries you are talking about, insurance zones, airspace, all that will be clarified. Types of drones, everything will get clarified in the subsequent slides. So let's take a 10 minutes break. We'll come back again at 11:45 and begin with the in detail understanding the drone rules 2021. Sounds good?
sure.
Okay, so I'll just mute myself and come back in 10 minutes.